Rest in peace Tilikium and every other orca that's died in captivity. Hi everyone, it's Cara and welcome to another video. This video I'd like to talk about something very serious, which is orca captivity and dolphin captivity in general, particularly SeaWorld, and why it's bad. And I thought, as it's Tilikium's 1 year anniversary from his death, it'd be a good day to talk about this. So it was about a year ago now actually that I watched Blackfish for the first time, and Blackfish is a documentary that is on Netflix, so if you have Netflix you should definitely go check that out. And it's all about the captivity of orcas and what they go through in captivity and how intelligent they are and how they shouldn't be in captivity. I wanted to use Tilikium's anniversary to kind of talk about some of these things and talk about how important it is that people don't go to SeaWorld or theme parks like it to protect these amazing creatures. If you're going to these places and seeing the shows, then you are help prophesizing this issue that has come to light. And I get, like, obviously it's never been nice, but when you can excuse it a little bit more 40 years ago when we didn't know as much as we know now, but now we know what we know. It's not fair for these animals to be in captivity. I understand that it's hard to readjust them to the wild. Keiko was the killer whale or orca who played Willy in Free Willy, and after people found out about the fact that he was still in captivity, there was a giant uproar, mostly from kids, which was amazing, about letting Willy be free. So there was this giant thing about rehabilitating Keiko back into the wild, and it went from Mexico to Oregon, then Oregon to Iceland, I think, I can't remember. And then it was Iceland, and then he got used to other whales, and it was a full process. And there's a documentary on Keiko's journey as well that's definitely on YouTube, because that's where I saw it, or it was, maybe it's been blocked by now, but I'm sure that documentary is somewhere out in the internet or Netflix or something along those lines. So yeah, so the whole thing is the process from getting Keiko from captivity back into the wild. Some people say it was a success, others don't. He did die a couple of years after he was put back in the wild, but that was due to pneumonia, so it wasn't really anything to do with the wild. When he arrived in Norway, he was fully fed and happy, and he travelled from Iceland to Norway and he spent most of his life in captivity, and he was meant to be a very gentle giant, and he was a very sweet orca from reports and from what people have said about him. So he probably did miss human company because of the fact that he'd grown up in it mostly. Most of his life he'd been in human captivity. But a lot of people have supported sanctuaries and held sanctuaries in various parts of America and Iceland and various other parts. You could section off like a part of a coastline with a net and allow them to have those miles and miles where they can roam, and they can still interact with other orcas, or if you have them all, even if you had them all together like they used to, but in that bigger space, so they're not going to fight with each other, because one of the main causes of death in captivity is them fighting each other because they're just too close and they can't get away from each other. And that's one of the biggest killers of orcas, and it's so sad to think, like, if they just had more space that would happen a lot less. So even if they got the orcas that they have in captivity now and got them to the point where they could live in a sectioned off bay in like Washington or somewhere, where they have like at least like the sections of the, you know, like big like mile stretches of bay that they can just swim and have a little bit of a taste of what they could have had or if they hadn't been born in captivity. A lot of people say that's too expensive, things like that. There's a lot of foundations, there's a lot of organisations, and there's a lot of people who are in support of stopping orca captivity. SeaWorld could even do, like they could put cameras in the bay, like SeaWorld and other companies like it could put cameras in the bay so you could observe them from like a learning documentary kind of setting rather than having them do tricks, which I know SeaWorld are currently trying to pull, like, oh, we're going to teach you about them, and it's like, well, they're still in these tiny boxes, so it doesn't really help. But if they did it in like one of those bays where they just had cameras around the bay and they could still interact with humans because of the fact they've been with humans for so long. And you could have those kind of interactions where people could come and see, and people could look at what they're doing wildlife wise, and they can have cameras to show how they interact with each other and things like that. And that could still be a giant benefit to those kind of companies, rather than having them in these small cages and having them perform. So that's kind of a compromise where they get the space and they get to have a bit of freedom without having to do all these tricks, but they also get to have like that fresh water, and they get to have that interaction, and they get to swim bigger distances than they would in those tiny cages. I'm going to link some websites in the description box on different like aids and charities that you can look at, and you can look into yourself. As I say, I'd highly recommend you watch Blackfish. It's a fantastic documentary that's really helped a lot of people open their eyes, including me. I have pictures of, I've been to orca shows, I've been to dolphin shows, I've been to sea lion, seal shows. Like, as a child, that's what I grew up with, and I used to love them because I got to see these animals. And again, a lot of people argue it's the only chance they'll get to see these animals, so they were in support of it, which now that I know what happens, I completely disagree with. But as a child, I loved them, and I really wanted to see the shows because it was amazing. I got to like swim with one of the dolphins in one of the dolphin shows, so I was kind of on like a life, I had like a pulley float, and they were pulling me along on the pulley float, and I got to, you know, like kiss them and things like that. So obviously 9-year-old me was thrilled that I got picked to be part of the dolphin show, and I got to go around the pool with the dolphin, but 22-year-old me doesn't. I understand that this might not be the highest charity priority that you have, and for younger people who don't have as much money, like I don't have a lot of money, the best way that you can help is to not go to these places with your parents or like with your friends, and just don't participate in what's going on, and that way the companies are losing money. So yes, it's not great for the orcas that are currently in captivity, but it stops the trade, and it makes it so that the companies are more likely to try these rehabilitation programs and get them to like retire. Helping in social media is another great way to help, like what I'm doing right now. Just getting the awareness out there is really important, so if that's all you can do, then that is your part in this stand, and I'm sure they'd be very happy if they knew you were doing that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.